got into from Inspired Stampede by Ali Sparks, illustrated by Ross Collins. And if you're just tuning in now, the boys were outside playing with their dog, Piddle, and all of a sudden, he vanished. And they went looking for him, and they found him in the neighbor's yard in a secret lab. And they ran and got the dog, and something sprayed on their legs, and they ran back to the house, and they were trying to clean it off, but then all of a sudden, everything started to get big. I mean, really big. And then they found there were spiders. And my sister came in, Jenny tried washing them down the drain, and then now they're in the sewer. And a big, let me get the direct quote. There was something was towering over them with glittering black eyes, sharp yellow teeth, with a huge brown hairy monster. So we're going to see what's next, okay? So next chapter. Scratch and Sniff. Oh, do give it a rest, said the monster. We could hear you screaming all the way down the drain pipe. You should hear yourself honestly. Josh and Danny stopped screaming. They just gulped and gasped a little bit. My name's Scratch, said this monster. He held out a clawed paw. Danny just stared at it. Josh carefully put out his leg to shake. And this here's my missus, Sniff. Another smaller monster put her head around the furry shoulder of the first. She kindly smiled. We live under your shed. Hello, love, Sniff said. Don't look so scared. We won't bite. But, don't you want to eat us? Squealed Danny. Sniff made a face. What? Spider eyes? Spider legs? Stuck in my teeth? I don't think so. Or rats, went on Scratch. We have more refined tastes. Don't you know? Like a nice bit of cake. Oh, yes. Chocolate cake, sighed Sniff dreamily, with no frosting. Rats, of course. Now they were slightly less terrified. Josh and Danny could make out the rodently shape of Scratch and Sniff. And anyway, you're not regular spiders, are you? Said Scratch. He narrowed his bead-like black eye. Can you tell? Asked Josh. Oh, yes, it's the smell, said Scratch. And the talking. Spiders aren't normally so chatty. You've been got, haven't you, love, said Sniff, by that mad scientist, Petty Potts. Danny and Josh scuttled around. They exchanged 16 blinks of surprise. Oh, you needn't be surprised. We rats know a lot about what humans get up to, said Scratch, with an airy stroke with his whiskers. We're your closest cousins, don't you know? Nobody else in the animal world more like humans than rats. We're omnivores and scavengers, just like you. Okay, said Josh. But what can you tell us about Petty Potts? Exactly what has she done to us? It's her switch spray, said Scratch. She's been working on that for years in that secret lab of hers. We pop in from time to time for the sandwiches. She never finishes a cheese and pickle sandwich. Anyway, she finally made a breakthrough a few weeks ago, and she started to switch things. Switch things? Said Danny. SWITCH, said Scratch. It stands for, now let me think, serum, which instigates total cellular hijack, said Sniff. Suddenly, she sounded like a chemistry professor. What? Said Danny. It's a serum. That's what she calls it, went on Sniff. It forces all your body cells to be different kinds of cells. Like each cell has been hijacked by another cell, you see. So, serum enunciates total cellular hijack. She spent ages trying to come up with a smart sounding name. She was going to call it serum to initiate process of morphine, but STIPOM just doesn't roll off the tongue so well. How do you know all those words? Gasped Danny. I mean, you're rats. Danny! Josh poked his brother with one hairy leg. Rats are very intelligent. Well, we watch a lot of TV, said Sniff. Hear a lot of public radio too, said Scratch. Anyway, at first, she was doing little things with her switch spray. Spray went on Sniff. Insects, a bee into an ant, a beetle into a spider. Not an insect, an arachnid, pointed out. Josh, is he always like this? Sniff asked Danny. Yes, Danny sighed. He's a freaking little bug geek. So, went on Sniff, just tiny creatures at first, and we thought that was all of it. Was to it. But only this week, she was saying she wanted to switch spray on bigger things. Reptiles, perhaps, maybe even mammals. We kept well out of her way when we heard that. Good thing she talked a lot to herself, added Scratch, or we might never know. She had her eye on us, I could tell you. In fact, she was just setting a rat trap for us when your little dog came in and peed on her floor. So that terror, she was trying to switch Puddle into a bug? Horrible woman, said Danny. Yes, she got you instead, said Scratch. We saw it from under the sink in her lab. That's why we came to find you. We heard you up in the bathroom, and then we heard your big sister screeching about two spiders in the tub. And we put two to two together, and it doesn't take long for the spray to work. Sometimes it goes off in seconds. We worked out where you would have ended up down the drain. Scratch chuckled and shook his head. As your closest cousin, well, it was only the right thing to do, try to help. Well, thanks, said Josh. He resisted the urge to correct Scratch. Apes were actually their closest cousin, but it seemed impolite to say so. But what can we do now? Well, let's get out of here for starters, said Scratch. It's not safe. Get up on our backs and we'll swim you out of here. Doubtfully, the brothers looked at the rat's back. Scratch and Sniff shimmered down low to let the spiders climb on board. Go on, love, Sniff encouraged Josh. Just hang on to my fur and you won't fall off. Josh went for it. He just ran up Sniff's back. He found it surprisingly easily. There were these clever little hooks at the bottom of each of their feet. They anchored him tightly onto her fur. Danny ran up onto Scratch's a moment later. Then, with a whoosh of rotten, eggy air, Scratch leapt into the slow-moving stream and began to swim along the sewer. The dark water surged up. Danny ran up onto Scratch's head, alarmed. It was quite flat on top, between his ears, and easy to hang on. Behind him swung Sniff, her nose held daintily above the water. Josh had also anchored between her ears. Oh no, we're not going down the bit where the poop comes out, are we? Afraid to Danny. But a moment later, they came out into daylight. They were swimming through the small stream in the little overgrown gully, which ran along between the backyard and on the road and the next road. Phew! No poo, sighed Sniff. I don't think so, sniffed Sniff. We do have our standards, you know. Thank you, said Josh. He ran down Sniff's soaked back and onto a large stone at the edge of the stream. Now, can can you tell us how we get back to being humans? Scratch and Sniff shook the water off their fur on the tiny beach of pebbles below them. They exchanged worried glances as Danny joined Josh on the rock. You don't mean to tell us that we're like this for good, gasped Josh. Well, no, said Scratch. We don't know that for sure. And in fact, I know that one of the bees turned back into a bee after just a few hours of an ant. One of them? What happened to the other one? That Petty Pot's gone with her switch spray, demanded Josh. Well, they may have changed back, if there had been time, said Scratch, looking rather awkward. Only, well, most of them got what? Squeaked Danny. He stood up on his legs like a very unattractive ballerina. Eaten, sighed Sniff. Most things get eaten. I mean, a lot of things get eaten anyway. But when you're an ant or a bee or a beetle or something, you get to know how to look out for yourself. And if you're suddenly switched into something else, you get, well, confused. And if you're confused, you're, well, lunch. Josh, said Danny. He edged towards his brother, even though he was still terrified of his legs. I don't know about you, but I'm confused. I'm very confused. Me too, gulped Josh, and that's when the icky, sticky, pink thing suddenly, ickily, stickily stuck to his shoulder, and he was yanked high into the air. Next chapter. Lunch. The worst thing about being a freaky little bug geek was knowing too much. And the worst thing about being a spider was being able to think too fast than a human. Josh had read in all his wildlife books that everything moves so much faster in the world of spiders and insects that they must think quickly to survive. And now he knew it was true. As he flew through the air, stuck to the pink thing, he had time to figure out quite a few things. He figured out, first of all, that he was stuck to the tongue of a toad. And then he figured out that he was probably not going to unstuck himself. And then he figured out that he was probably going to be eaten alive. He knew that toads ate their prey alive. They don't mind at all if their lunch kicks and complains if they go down. For the first time ever in his life, Josh wished he hadn't read so many wildlife books. As he flew helplessly towards the toad's gaping mouth, Josh twisted it around. He got a hold of some of that long tongue, drove his fangs into it, and squirted some venom in. The tongue didn't let go. There was no hope. He was total toad takeout. Crunch! Spot! Swish! That's the end of me, thought Josh. Funny, I only felt a little bump. He opened one eye, and then 6 or 7 more. The sticky tongue that was still attached to his shoulder, or thorax, if he's being correct. But the other end was no longer attached to the toad. It lay flattened under a giant black toad, or boot. Somebody had stomped on the toad. Stomped on it! Behind him, Josh could hear anguished cries from Danny, Scratch, and Sniff. They must have think he was gone for sure. Josh stood up. He found all his legs were shaken with fright. Then he ran away from whoever it had stomped on him. So whoever it could. Then he ran away before whoever it was could stomp on him too. The tongue followed him. Ew. It came away from the edge of the boot. It snaked along behind him like a weird scarf. It skipped and bounced over the rocks and fallen trees, which had once been twigs and petals when he was a boy. As he reached Danny and their rat friends, Josh yelled for the first time ever, "Get it off! Get it off! Get it off of me!" reached, leaned over, and he tugged the half of the tongue with his teeth, and it squished and popped as it finally came off. We thought you were a goner, son, said Scratch. He spit out the tongue and hustled them all beneath the old log. We thought you were lunch. Nobody ever got away from Gripper. Not ever. If he hadn't been just dumped on, you'd have been down his throat by now. Poor Josh gulped. Danny put his comforting arm a leg around him, but couldn't just make it work somehow. Whoever got comfort from a spider leg, he wondered. We've got to find a way to get back of being humans again, he said, or we'll never make it to dinner time. Well, I hate to say it, said Sniff, but Petty Potts is most likely the only one who can help you. But how will she know it's us? She might just dump on us like somebody had just dumped on that toad, squeaked Danny, who looked around anxiously. The owner of the boot, who had been screened from view by the leaves of a large bush, seemed to have been gone. No, she wouldn't have stomped on you. She never wastes insects, said Scratch. But you didn't see it was Petty Potts who just stomped on Gripper, added Scratch. She was probably after him for another one of her experiments. Scratch peered out from under the log. She made a gate in the back fence so she can come down here and kidnap innocent creatures for her lab. Can't see her now. She might have gone back with the Gripper's gooey bits. But I think we should take you back there too. Maybe she'll help you. Maybe you can find a way to show her who you are. Well, at least let's check to see if there's any more toads before we go, said Josh with a shiver. He edged out from under the log and looked all around, and then he ran up a tree. Yes, he ran right up so fast he shocked himself. Look at me, Danny, look at me! I'm up the tree, he yelled excitedly. He forgot to be afraid. Danny lost no time in catching up. He was the athletic one. After all, he wasn't going to be beaten to the top by Josh. Woohoo! He called out, taking Josh. I'm a superhero. I can walk up the walls. Steady now, called Scratch from the lower part of the trunk. He was scrambling a little bit way up. Lots of things up there looking for lunch. Best come down. But Josh and Danny was now running along the tip of the high branch. They were staring amazed at the view. From here they could see across their yard and into the yards of the other side. Everything lay below them like half the country. It's seen from an airplane. So incredible, colorful, and interesting, and big. Butterflies flapped past them like giant kites. Bees and flies zooming in all directions, sounding like helicopters, never bumping into one another, as if they were being guided by an air traffic control. A slurping noise from above them turned out to be a chubby green caterpillar munching through a leaf. It barked. It winked a little black eye at them. It went, pardon. Ooh, lovely, lately, snackish. I'm feeling peckish, came a voice from behind them. Danny spun about in horror. Above them on the branch was an enormous bird, a blackbird, he thought. It had a bright orange beak, and the beak was jabbing right towards them. Err! Danny ran up the branch and then found himself sliding off the edge, and for one horrible second he tipped sideways into thin air, ready to plummet down. But then he realized he was still running. He ran right around under the branch. Josh hopped on his many tails, and all of a sudden the world was upside down. Their incredible little hook feet were keeping them attached to the crabby bark of the tree, and they were defying gravity. Like Superman, marveled Josh under his breath. Has it gone? Whispered Danny. For a few seconds they hung there, petrified. But then there was a terrible, loud whistle. A huge black feathered head swung around the branch and gapped its beak at him. Aha! Nearly lost you, it said. Brace yourself. Got the munchies. No! Shouted both Josh and Danny. Below they could hear Scratch and Sniff desperately shouting at the bird to get away. Now look, said the bird, tilting its head to one side and regarding them patiently. Stop messing around. I need a snack and you're it. That's the pick in order. Now get over it. Drop, yelled Josh. Just let go. Danny didn't need telling. He'll rather splatter on the ground than get eaten alive. He let go and found himself once again wheeling around in free fall. Ooh, that wasn't an unexpected soft landing. As Danny lay dazed, he realized he was on some kind of material. A short distance away, Josh had also flopped onto the material feverishly. Counting his legs, Danny looked at his crisscross of the green and brown wool threads from its round shape and a few gray cables of hair on it. He guessed it was a hat, and now it was tipping up. Shrieking, Josh and Danny ran up the material, grabbing hole after hole with their hooky feet. And whoever was holding that hat determinedly shook it until they fell again. This time with a plop into a large see-through container. Inside it, Josh ran around and around, shooting something weird out of his butt. Ew, said Danny. Spider-Man never did it like that. Josh was making an emergency web, and he was shooting silk out from a spinner to create a network of strong rope, which he was sticking all over the see-through plastic at a very high speed. As he ran around, they would be able to use it to climb up, but Danny could see it was hopeless. Above them, the lid crashed down shut, and now the supersized face of none other, Hetty Potts, gloomed slowly into view, peering at them. Josh could see the mammoth bristle hairs up her hideous pink nostrils. He slumped down into his useless emergency web and sighed. I really didn't ever want to see that again. Alright, you guys, that's it for now, and hopefully we'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.